So, as stated before, if you're not familiar with this character, this is Lysithea from Fire Emblem. The top left people, of course. So, uh, she did win the poll on Patreon. So, tied with Revi from Black Lagoon right now. But I'm more familiar with this character than Revi, so I might do Revi later on. But yeah, for now I'll do this. So the thing with Fire Emblem characters is that they're really shape based. So I'm very careful with their designs because if you screw up the designs of their costuming or something, you might cause an imbalance to their designs. Of course, like if you look at all the characters from Fire Emblem Three Houses, like they're very anime. They have a lot of colors going on. Very designy. Like they're kind of half and half. They're not like Persona 5 type of thing, but like they still want to have some historical influences, but in general they're still like very silhouette based, very shape based. So like I'm making sure that I capture the shapes as soon as possible and see how silhouette looks before moving on from a sketchy phase here. Yeah, she's very powerful with magic. So this is one of those things where it's like, I'll just give you a very quick example of what I mean here. Like, I actually deleted the previous sketches, but like, let's say if I drew Lysithea, like I'll just make a really quick sketch. I'll use a different color here. Give me a second. Like, I had a few sketches before this stream to show you why I'm like. I'll just give you what I mean here. So let's say I drew Lysithea like this or something like that. So I'll probably be fixing the proportions if I really wanted to, but something like this, right? Oh, that's pretty cool. My only run in Fire Emblem was in for Edelgard, so I didn't really get the chance to play the other paths, but just because I don't really have much time nowadays. But yeah, didn't really have too much interaction with the Scythia. But yeah, for example, like if I make a pose like this, right? So this is a case where being dynamic is not really that helpful because it is a really rough sketch. But like, if we know Lysithea's character, right? She's more mellow. Like she can go a little bit crazy every so often, but like she's still a mage, right? Mages are generally archetypically not that dynamic. They're not like Lysithea isn't trying to show off her boobs or something. Like she's not that type of character. Like there's definitely that type of character in Fire Emblem. So to have like a really dynamic pose for her, it's not really telling the story. So which is why there's a big difference between how you say it, dynamicism and storytelling. Like sometimes being dynamic is really not the answer. But sometimes it is. But in this case, like I opted not to do that because she's like a lot of times you'll find that there's a lot of characters in Fire Emblem. They're more regal. They're mellow. They're not really they're not really going to be that dynamic person. Like if you're drawing like Claude or something, like from like if you're familiar with Fire Emblem Three Houses, then yeah. You could he's more of the energetic type of guy, so like you can get away with more dynamic poses, but for Lysithea, probably not. yeah, like it's very important. Like there's a reason why like I tell people that I don't draw something that I'm not too familiar with, because I've done that before, and people are very good at picking out like someone who just fakes their interest in a series, right? So like if they don't know what they're doing and they draw the characters from Fire Emblem or something, right? Then perhaps they're not going to capture the character, and it's more important to capture the character than anything else. You could have someone looking the same way, but like if they're doing something that's out of character, then it's just gonna feel really awkward. I think I'm okay with this pose. But yeah, like one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to fan art is like people who just draw stuff that is very out of character. Like it's now that's not to say like there's a lot of like I'm not gonna mention any artists, but like some of them are just gonna draw them like really lewd and like just very sexual, and like I'm sure there's an audience for that, but you know it just doesn't feel right to me. Like when you have like very mellow characters that are doing like really like I guess unspeakable things, but it is what it is, man. Like the internet can do whatever they want. So one thing I'm considering right now is just where the lighting will be and how I will make the composition here. So like again, this is the value phase. Most likely, if you've ever seen my tutorials on Patreon or on ArtStation Gumroad, I usually just skip right into the painting step because like I am willing to dump this if it doesn't look good, but this does seem like it works, so I'm not going to do that. But like I'll be like in a lot of cases I'll be dumping like tens of these sketches before I find one that I really like to render, because I'll rather dump a sketch that I did in 5 minutes than to render something and that like in like 5 hours that doesn't look right. So it's about time efficiency in that case. I'm very careful with how I draw her eyes. She has very specific types of eyes where it's sort of like very sly. She's very smooth looking type of character. So, like even though it's always going to be within the realm of anime, like there's different types of features that I have to consider, like how I draw the eyes, how I draw the mouth, and that sort of thing. And of course these are rough, so it's not a big deal if I screw up a few things here. Yeah. One thing I'm doing right now as well is I'm making sure I get the costuming right. I don't want to... Again, I don't want to screw up... Yeah. Like, even now I saw it. Like, the sleeves are much longer here. The white part of the sleeve. So that sort of thing has to be considered. It's very important, like, if you're doing fan art, to establish that early on, because if you don't, then you might find out, oh, the sleeves are longer, the white area is longer, but then now I balance the composition based on shorter white sleeves. So, like, it's... you just make sure you get it right as soon as possible so that you can move forward with the piece. Yeah, it looks kind of wrong, but I could fix it as a color. I think I could even have more regal, very seductive eyes here. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to see how the colored version looks before I do that. So now, in terms of lighting, I'll probably just make a signal here, just bring back the hair a little bit. Maybe. If you ever see my work, I usually do this type of lighting anyway, so might as well do something comfortable for myself here. So, something like that. Yeah, something like that. I'll probably have to fix the face. The face will be very important here. Don't really like it in this stage right now, but let's move on. Trying to think. So what would be? Her skin is very bright, but I'll probably have to get some. Probably get some higher values here just before. Ooh, I should maybe establish whether she's looking at her hand or the camera. I'm leaning towards something like this, where she's looking at the camera, really, like that, something like that. I'll probably have to fix the anatomy a little bit, but it's fine. I am going to just slap in some colors. Now, I'm not too sure what I want here. So her shirt is yellowish because she's from Golden Deer. So if I, oh god, I wait a second. I'm gonna actually add the yellows a little bit. So one thing I like to do here is I'm putting down. Oh, that's not working. I'm putting down a colored brush here just so that I can establish some of the colors that has to exist. So like in whenever you're doing fan art of any kind, there are some colors where you really don't want to go against. Like generally speaking, skin color is very malleable because you know, skin. I mean, like it sounds contradictory, but skin is. They're generally like there's a range of colors that you can have for skin tones, and you can adjust it based on what you need and how strong of a skin that you need. But when it comes to costuming, I really don't want to go against that, because the moment you go against the costuming, then you can basically ruin the entire design, and people would not be able to relate to the character that you're drawing. So I'll even maybe just add a few patches of red here, just so that it makes it a bit easier later on. Yeah, just so that, like the nose and the cheeks and that sort of thing. When I want a red, I kind of like this actually. Something like this. This is workable. I could even just pump up the saturation a little bit more. Now I don't really like the face, so yeah, this is one of those things. Once you start adding the colors in, you start to see there are some really big problems with the face. I can even cover it for now here. And I'm going to use a channel layer to add in some reds here, because I'm feeling some reds. Yeah, that's really... So, a lot of times, this is something that you can do in traditional as well, where you just want to slam some colors down onto the canvas, so that you can just take your, you can just move the paint around, right? The biggest mistake a lot of people have when they're coloring is that they're too hesitant on putting down colors, because they're like, oh man, they're overthinking it, and it's like, oh, what do I put down? But sometimes you just have to put the colors down and just start mixing and just seeing what works out in the long run here. Yeah, so like, I could have her chest pump out a little bit. I know she's kind of flat in this story, but it kind of looks better, I feel like, in this particular image. Just making her chest a little bit bigger than what the story entails. Just not too big, like, don't want to break the design here, but her skin could be a bit more colorful. She's kind of bright though, so I don't know. Try something here. There we go. Yeah, I kind of like this. Something like that. I could have her playing around a little bit with her hair here. Kind of like, yeah, I had it in the initial sketch, so something like that would be really nice. So now I really like this pose. Generally speaking, sometimes I would just delete it, like if around the stage if something's not working. But like in this case, I feel like this I captured the character pretty well here. So this is completely workable. Basically, my point is, like, if you're ever, like, doing art professionally, you realize you'll be dumping a lot of paintings, and, like, you don't want to get attached into anything. Just because by this point, I've done thousands and thousands. Well, no, maybe over 1,000 paintings, and, like, it's... You start to be numb to your own stuff. So whatever doesn't work, you just dump it. There's always tomorrow to make a better one. Her smile is very distinct as well here. Her hair... This is where I'm considering breaking a bit of the design here, just because I want the hair to jet out a little. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So this is one of those things where you can do as an illustrator, but you might not be able to do when you are a 3D artist. The reference I'm using, of course, is 3D, so they have to abide to certain rules, but when it comes to 2D, then you can break a bit of the structure of the hair and that sort of thing, just so that it looks better. She is a lot more seductive than that. I need a better expression. Yeah, that looks better. Remember, if you have any questions while I'm working on this, just let me know. Again, like I will get very bored if I'm just painting, and if I want to just do that, I can just most likely I can just do it in my own time. So like I'm hoping that I can help people as I go along here. Do I want it to be more blue? No. One other thing I like to do is just I like to test the colors a little bit every so often, just to see. It's sort of like in traditional terms is you're basically trying to glaze like layers of paint, like thin layers, just so that you can see if you can adjust the colors a little bit. So like even like this compared to this, I feel like having a bit of more red here helps the feeling a little bit more. I don't want to be too dreary about it, too dark with this character, so that sort of thing is in consideration. Do I like the head? I use channels, so I'll show you what I mean here. I'll go very. I usually go very quickly, so you might have missed it. So I duplicate the layer, so like you can Control J, or you can just right click and scroll down to duplicate layer. It's just a little slower. You double click the layer, and then you just. Actually no, you have to move. You have to move the layer a little bit. Like you just offset it by a little bit. So you move it up or down, and then you start playing around with the channels here. The reason why I really like doing this is because, again, it's a really quick way to just slam a bit of color into the canvas. So, like, even if you're going to paint over it eventually, it's better to just have colors on the canvas than not. Again, like the biggest mistake a lot of people do is that they kind of they're too hesitant with the colors. So what happens is that they end up making something called a muddy painting, which is something like if I were to do something like this, just desaturated. A lot of times people are so hesitant on putting colors down that they end up making a painting that's just almost gray. So for me, it's like, to avoid that situation, I would just slam colors with overlays and like channels and that sort of thing. In traditional senses, you would just maybe just take a palette color, like a color on your palette, and just use your brush and spray it onto the canvas, just so that there's something interesting going on. Right, you're basically trying to spark your imagination when it comes to your colors. If you're like just be playing it safe the entire time, then you're just gonna end up with a very safe painting and not much to show about. Like, it's one. I will say that it's one thing that I had to work on as well, because for me, like, especially when I'm doing stuff for clients, I get, like, when I started out my career, I was like really scared of putting stuff down, like taking chances, right? So like I had to force myself to change my process so that I would take chances no matter what I do. Just because, like, I get, like, when you're working for clients, it's a different story. Like, money is on the line and that sort of thing, and you don't want to screw up, right? And when you don't want to screw up, you start regressing your skill set because you're holding yourself back. So anything to really just play it loose. Like, if you ever see my work in general, like, I'm very loose. I would do whatever it takes to just be energetic, just keep the energy. If I don't, if a painting starts to die down too much, then I will most likely dump it, just because it means that I'm overthinking it and it doesn't work, and you never want to have that situation. So one thing I'm already seeing here is that the reds on her eyes. So the red eyes have to be there. So that means I have to somehow spread that red around the canvas. So I might even try a few things here. Just slam some colors in. I don't care if it's wrong. I'll probably be like, it's digital, so I can always paint over it. But I just need some sort of red colors going on. Like, honestly, I don't even hate this. I kind of like having these reds. I would even just pump it up a little bit more. So again, just whatever it takes to just have a little bit more color into your piece is always really good. Yeah, I don't We're gonna take chances here. Yeah, see, see, like, being able to put colors there, it kind of created something that I didn't intend, but it looks pretty good. So I'll keep it like that. I'm still kind of obsessed with the eyes here. Something's not right. And thank you, Octa. I read the message, so I appreciate it. But like, you don't always have to ask questions about art. Just you can ask me whatever you want. Just make it a bit more interesting. I'll just be going down the list of everything to talk about as I'm doing this. So, and that can get really boring, honestly. Like I know, like, seeing Twitch streamers paint and stuff is actually so boring at times. Yeah, I don't know if this is working. We'll have to fix it in the long run. Yeah, something's not right. Another thing I like to do is like duplicate the layer and then blur it. The reason why is because a lot of times that brushes in Photoshop, they're a little bit too sharp. So I try my best to sometimes just reset. And in addition, it's sort of like squinting your eyes a lot of times. So like being able to blur it a little bit just gives you a better impression of your piece, and maybe I'll start seeing certain mistakes. I am doing very well. I've been very busy lately, so like I had to skip last week just because like there's just so many obligations. So it's just a lot of stuff coming in at the same time. So it's just pretty crazy, but you know, just doing my best here. How about you? How are you guys doing, gals, guys? Need a bit more color. So now that I have the reds in the background here, I need the face to be a bit more saturated, just because like relative to background, it's a little bit too dyed down. So this is where skin, like, if you've ever watched my skin tone tutorial, this is where the idea that skin tone is relative to the environment matters. The red is causing the skin to feel dark, like less saturated than usual, because I changed it into a saturated red. So that's something to think about. I'm gonna pump up the reds too. I really like the red. So yeah, something like that would be pretty sick. Yeah, I'm gonna be working on the eyes for quite a while. Like, if you know her character from Fire Emblem, she's very calculated. She's very smooth type of person, like very almost seductive. I wouldn't say that, like she's not that seductive, but she has that sort of impression. So like I'm trying to capture that. So that's one of those things where like I could be technically correct on the eyes, but like it's not storytelling wise. It's not really saying what I need to say. Maybe just slam some colors in. Yeah, it's not. I think it might be because the eyes are too wide. Even something like this might be better. A boring art course is not a bad thing. Like I grew up like just watching that. Like, well, not grow up. I improved myself watching a lot of times those really boring stuff. Like like some artists a lot of times they're not like they really don't have an exciting style, and their personality kind of reflects it too, right? So like I don't really want to blame them because they're really good artists a lot of times, but yeah, like it's like I'm more of a very finicky person. Like so like the way I paint and the way I try to describe things is a little bit I would say hopefully more exciting than like the yeah you put the paint down, yeah, 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 this is where I put more of that red on the lips, that sort of thing, right? Like, so some people are like that, so like you can't really yeah, it happens. Like I know exactly what you mean. It might be why I really like digital painting, because I'm like just so finicky. I do a lot of martial arts and stuff, so like it's just sort of like I just have a lot of energy that I kind of try my best to bring into my art. And that's not to say I didn't go through the really boring fundamental stuff, because trust me, I learned all that stuff. It's just that once you know how the rules work, then that's when you can really start playing around with the rules and just start breaking them and just doing it in your own way. And it comes down to what you're hoping to do as a profession as well. So I've done like video game concept art and that sort of thing, and like when you're doing video game concept art, you're most likely going to go really quickly. So yeah, no time to just be slow and like do that sort of thing. I'm starting to like this a lot better with the way her eyes look. Again, like she's very seductive, like very deceivingly seductive. So like I'm hoping to capture that in this portrait. This painting has worked surprisingly well, given that I'm doing it live. Because a lot of times, like if you watch some of my tutorials, I would say like around the hour mark, an hour half mark, is my cutoff for a painting that isn't going to go past that point. But in this case, I know for sure this one is going to work, so it's worth working on. But a lot of times, like around this point, even like or like even like 30 minutes later, I'll be looking at it, double checking it, and if it doesn't work, I'm just gonna dump it straight up. Thank you, Omega. Like, yeah, it's. I would say like I don't know, like for me it's like I always like to ask questions, because especially when I see somebody with a really weird style, like I would always try to ask them how they are doing stuff, right? Just because there are certain things that are just going too quickly. Like I'm sure like watching this, you might be like thinking about certain things that I might be skipping over, but yeah, like for me at least, like when I see something weird, I would try to ask as many questions as possible. I'm gonna move the lips a little bit higher here. I still don't like the eyes, unfortunately. I'm trying to think what I can do here. It might not even be the eyes, it might be the nose proportions to the eyes. So I'm gonna try something like this. So this is like the great thing about digital, I can just move the nose. Like in traditional, you're most likely gonna have to redraw that stuff. But I think I know why, and I'm gonna try it. It might have to be angled a little bit higher here. That looks a lot better. So before, the reason why I'm changing the eyes again is because the eyes were a little bit too horizontal, which creates a sense of sleepiness more than like seduction, I guess. Like how, I don't know how to describe it, but now if I angle the eyes a little bit more, it starts to look, yeah, it's looking a lot better. That's really good, Luna. It's, yeah, like that's fantastic. That's stuff that I would do like when I was learning the art myself. It's definitely like I'm like the thing is like the reason why I like what you're showing me right now is because I'm feeling the materials, and that's the hardest thing about still lifes. A lot of times, one of the biggest mistakes is that they just render the objects as if they're all made of plastic or something. And like in this case, I'm feeling the clay, I'm feeling the apple. I know that the basket in the back or whatever that is a like it's a bit more rough, that sort of thing. And I feel the cloth as well. So like all of these materials are fantastic. But like I do understand that it's going to be very boring. It's not something that you want to like dwell on unless you're like a fine artist. Like there's some fine artists who will just paint these for the rest of their lives and they love it, right? And that's not saying I that's a bad thing, but like if you're not looking into that, then the best you can do is just do these and really understand what you're doing. Like really study why the clay pot looks like that, or the metal pot. Yeah, it's more like clay. I think it's clay, but yeah, why does it look like that? And you bring it to your own work. So like once you understand the properties of materials with lighting, then like if you're drawing a clay golem in a fantasy like Dungeons and Dragons game, then you'll know how to render the clay golem, right? So like there's a lot of things to go on with. I always say like just get through the boring stuff first. Like it's one of those things where it's like it sucks, but like everybody just wants to draw anime girls and shit. But like you're gonna the thing is a lot of people like they kind of skip the step of the boring stuff, and then when they draw the anime girls, it just looks wrong. And like you don't want to be that type of artist, because trust me, there's quite a lot of those. There's quite a lot of those out there already where they're just wrong, like when they're doing stuff. And wrong as in it's not even the it looks good type of wrong, it just doesn't look right. Like people break anatomy, people whenever they break anatomy, it's not because they're trying to fix composition or something, which is one of the reasons you would break anatomy, but yeah. So I'm now like thinking about the structure of the arm here. So I would have to. So it's going into distance. So one thing that I may have skipped over is that the fact that this sleeve is going away from the camera. So the sleeve has to correlate with the structure and the direction of where it's going. So something like that would be good, like that. I'm liking the face a lot more now that I worked on it. So yeah, it's a matter of like shading it, but I'll do that later. Um, I think even enlarging it a little bit more would be good. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, even something like that. That looks much better, like composition wise. So something like that would be good. I need to slam some reds on the far side here. So again, not really concerned too much about the logistics of it, but just need some colors somewhere. I don't like the nose. I don't like the nose, so there's gonna be a few changes. Give her a bit of plastic surgery here. It's too big now. I try my best to tread along the lines of anime without making it look too much like anime. I would even lower the lips back a little bit more like that. Why do I move it back? Okay. Funniest I've tried to study. My advice to everybody is that don't really study the style, study the fundamentals, because like I always say, like how somebody moves their hand, that like to move like the brush and stuff, it's really individual to the artist, right? But like the fundamentals that you learn are universal. Like you'll find your own way of painting, like when you get to a certain point in your career. Like, and like if you're trying to teach other people, then like people aren't gonna get your own style. So like it's like that's why, like, whenever I watch any tutorials, like from professional artists, I try my best not to think about how they're like what specifically, like how they're moving their hand and shit, but like it's more like what are they thinking about? Like, so like why am I using a red background, for instance? Like, what is the logistics of that and that sort of thing. I'm going to start adding a few patterns just so that I'm a bit more inspired by the patterns and stuff. Just give it a bit more interesting things going on. Yeah. As you imagine, this is sort of like my iconic style where I add a few things. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, like my style again is very loose. I'm not the type to I was never the guy who was drawing in between the lines. Like I was doing like very impressionistic stuff since like I started. And which is ironic because like if you know my history, I did go to animation school. So like in animation school, I was doing really clean line art over thousands of drawings, right? Like so like that sort of thing bored the shit out of me. But like I ended up like learning a lot from doing that, even though I really hated it. But of course, I wouldn't have known if I didn't go to that school. So it was a great school, but I knew coming out of it, I wasn't going to be animating Bugs Bunny or anything. I just wasn't that type of artist. So like is a good lesson on like. You should really understand yourself and understand like how do you get inspired, right? So for me, I'm a finicky guy. I love martial arts. Like I need some sort of like sort of like I like gamble a lot with my artwork when it comes to just taking chances and that sort of thing, similar to what I do in like for exercise and stuff. So like you start to understand like what type of artist you are. Like, of course, there's like different personalities as well. Like, some people are really like safe, and that's okay. Like, some people are the really slow type who will have like masterful paintings over like 200 hours, right? If you're that type of artist, then you'll know very quickly. So it's one of those things where art is indicative of yourself, and that's why it's one of the coolest things to really do in life. I feel like I need to spread some of the colors around here, so what I'm not liking right now is this area, because usually when I'm painting a portrait, it's I want to ensure that I'm using the canvas space properly, but this area is a little bit too empty for me. So I'm trying to think of ways I could perhaps like make it less apparent that it's a giant blob of red in the background. So even like experimenting with the colors, like just bring some of that white color in, just subtly, just break up the shapes. It takes a long time, trust me. It's one of those things where like I'm 30 years old, so like I've spent a long time just to so I graduated in 2013, so like I spent a long time exploring myself, just because like in art school you're not really exploring yourself, you're just learning the fundamentals. So like once I got out into the field, I'm like, okay, well, I can't really draw Bugs Bunny like anymore because I'm not really into that. So what am I really going for? So do not feel like you're like behind or anything. There's just a lot of like a lot of times it's very easy to fall into the trap of how do I say it? You're like it's like, oh, you don't know yourself and that sort of thing, and you feel like you should, but in actuality, every artist are always exploring new options in how they do their work, and they learn about themselves as they go along. I'm still not liking this patch of color here. I'll probably have to think about it, but maybe bring some blues in. Do I want it to be too red? Probably not. No, that's not working. The red here isn't too bad. I kind of like the red. The lips now needs to be changed here. I think I could do better than that. Because again, she's a certain type of character, so not every lip that you use on other characters will work here. So just being very careful. Could I put her face into shadow on the far side? Maybe. I like that a lot better. But again, things can change on the fly depending on what I do here. So, like, it might be even too red now. Like, I might even have to bring some blues back in. I might even just lower her face a little bit. This is like, of course, cheating digital tricks, but you know what? I'll take whatever cheat I can get to get things done faster. That looks a lot better. Okay. Yeah, so like what I'm thinking right now, why it's working is because it creates like a really interesting curve here, just so that it's a little bit more dynamic. I could even like enlarge her face a little bit more here. Again, I'm cheating. Yeah, I completely understand. Like, the pandemic has been really hard on a lot of people. Like, it's just so like don't feel threatened to don't feel threatened to buy my stuff. It's like I even priced it at $2 just because like I understand there's a lot of people who are going through hard times, and like another reason is because like I have fans from like all across the world, and like people like from India would tell me, man, like this is actually really affordable for me because you know some places in the world they're not as they're like $2 is a lot worth a lot more to the like a USD would be worth a lot more to them over there than here, right? So yeah, I didn't want my tutorials to be prohibitive to people around the world. This is looking very good here. I'm liking it. So one thing I'll be doing right now is just I just slam colors. So there's a hand, supposed to be a hand here, but like I kind of shaded it out. But like I need to make sure that I add in the colors here just so that I know how it looks like with the rebalanced hand. Just because she is playing with her hair, so that's a pretty important action. Oh, you're from Mexico, yeah. I heard there's a lot of the pandemic has been hitting Mexico pretty hard. So, yeah, like just take it easy there, eh? Like, yeah, the COVID has been really brutal. Like we're reopening in Canada right now, but like it's still like really like people are very scared. Like they're either really scared or they're not scared at all. And I don't know if that's scary in itself because you don't want people who just don't give a crap about anything. So like that's when problems occur when it comes to COVID. So it's kind of problematic. And like I'm Chinese, right? So like you would imagine like when people look at me across the street or something, they kind of get a little bit scared here, but like it is what it is. I feel like this smile's a little bit too seductive, so I'll be toning it down a little bit. This is where subtlety of expression really matters. Like, as crude as it sounds, like, there's seductive and then there's like, oh, I want to bang you type of thing, right? And you don't want to hit that territory unless you're looking to have that effect. If you're if you're drawing like really lewd stuff, well, let's just put it that way, then like yeah, you might want to go for that expression. But for me, it's like I'm not trying to create that impression. Like she's very confident, she's very seductive, a lot of times very smooth, but like she's not like a Like, yeah, I'm not gonna say it, but like you know what I mean. I'm trying to think if there's a way to introduce some colors. Maybe some of that grayish yellow on the bottom right here. I need something to break the reds. This is something that kind of been bothering me here. Maybe just try out a few things. No, it's not working. Turquoise? Do I want turquoise? Oh, now that I'm looking at it, the arm is not properly attached. Yeah, I need to shorten the arm there. There, that looks much better. Let's see, her shirt is something. This is where my style really comes into handy. I don't really need to draw every single detail on the clothing. I just need to kind of hint towards it. So, like this sort of area, it's actually very detailed on her shirt, but I'm not going to do that. Is my internet? Oh yeah, it might be. Oh, I do have a Pixiv. I do have a Pixiv. So if you go on my website, you'll find a link to my Pixiv, and you can check it out there. Like I started around like last year, and like I update it regularly. Thank you, Omega. Yeah, the thing with my style, the reason why I settled for something like this is not just because I'm like I'm very energetic and that sort of thing. A big part of it as well is because I understand that like there's no real point of doing paintings if you're going to just do hyper realistic like detailed stuff. For me, it's like there's a really cool effect that you can create when you tell people that, when you show people that it's like a painting, but there's still things going on that you can look at. So like, I want to keep those brushstrokes because that's what distinguishes my work from a photograph, right? Nowadays, you really don't want to overlap styles with photography because like, why would you ever want to hire somebody who just does photograph work, you know? Like, just get a photographer in that case. So, it's one of those things where it's a business decision as well as a personal decision. So, if you missed it, I just added more green to her body itself, and I did like it a lot better than just leaving her red. Just because I needed some sort of contrast in terms of colors. I'm looking to maybe even incorporate some turquoise in her hair and that sort of thing. I just need an excuse. I need an excuse to add more colors into her body, because if I don't, it's gonna look a little bit too stagnant. Yeah, like, it's very important. It's not just realism as well. Like, I kind of underplay the argument for it. Like, the other thing you have to consider is just your competition, right? And I don't really like saying it in an official tutorial, just because it's such a touchy topic. But, like, you have to understand, like, what people out there are doing as well. If let's say, so realism is the really obvious one. You don't want to you don't want to compete against you don't want to compete against photographers, because photographers will always do realism better, like pure photo realism. But there's other stuff that you have to consider, like other styles. So like, for instance, at least for me personally, one of the biggest challenges is trying to incorporate my... I like anime style, but trust me, there's a lot of people who do anime inspired styles, right? I don't even have to name them. Like, you could probably just find them everywhere. And like, when you look at a lot of artists in Korea, in China, give me a second, drink some water. They're really, really good at the realistic, like, anime influence type of style, because a lot of their industries, like their video game industries and such, they need people with that style. So like, they end up mastering that look. You can go on ArtStation if you don't know what I mean. Like, there's a lot of people with Chinese sounding names who has these really crazy, awesome anime realistic paintings. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm in the rut. So like, if I have to do that sort of style, I'm just gonna be competing against really crazy, like artists, like, who are going to do it much better than me, right? So either I compete against them 1-to-1, I do exactly what they do, but I want to do it better, or I would take some of that influence but not go entirely into it and just have some sort of distinguishing factor in my own work. So that's the reason why I ended up doing the very impressionistic stuff. Not just because I like the style, but because a lot of times you have to consider what the market has seen and what they haven't seen, and you want to take advantage of that. What you're learning right now, the anime realistic style. So I went quite a bit in, so I'm not too sure which section of the conversation you talked about. Yeah. No problem, take your time. I do like the greens, but how much green do I want? There's arguments to do something like this. I was picturing this in my head. I actually like this a lot better. Just because it's different. There's a bit of interesting colors going on when I make it a little bit more red than usual. Could I go the opposite end though? Could I do something like this? You know what? This is actually pretty cool. I like the effect that it creates. Yeah, I'm liking this. So this makes it a more ghastly here. That's really cool. Yeah, Cringe Kush Art is one of those artists. Okay, so my internet for some reason is not connecting to ArtStation and other sites. It seems like it's working on Discord, but everything else is screwed up. Might be a DNS thing, but I'm gonna go on my phone and check out the links that you just linked. Give me a second. Yeah, see, like, so I'm looking at this, right? Like, I'm going on my screen, my phone. So Krenz Kushar is at least a second link. He's Taiwanese, I think, and he's really, really good at what he does, right? So I personally have tried to study his work as well, but the problem is, like, again, like, artists will have their own distinct ways of doing something, and like, there's no way in hell I can ever like copy it in some way, and even Luna's link as well. I'm not sure if that's Kushar. I don't think it's Kushar, but it's a very similar style. So yeah, like, that sort of thing is like, it's really appealing. There's a huge demand for it, but there's also a huge supply of those types of artists, right? So I'm not saying you can't do it. Like, if you ever wanted, like, if you really love that style, you'll naturally gravitate towards learning about it more, and then you'll really understand it and really find your own way of doing it. But in the end, it's still like a really common style that. Yeah, I know. Your link is Kushar. I'm not sure about Luna's link, Eva Luna's link. I'm not sure who did that one, but yeah, it's one of those things where like as you start learning the market a bit more, it's very important to understand the importance of being unique. Because if you're not unique, then what are you doing in art, right? Like if you're not trying to be, at least. Oh, I'm gonna cheat a little bit here. I'm gonna make the silhouette a little bit more distinct over there, just because it started to meld a little bit. Yeah, see, like, so this is stuff that I've done as well, like, because Krenz's work is really nice, and a lot of people for sure are heavily influenced by how he does anime. But at the same time, like, even in your studies, no matter how well you try to copy it, like, there's always going to be something that's a little bit off. And that's because, like, again, we can't capture every single brushstroke and every single movement that the guy does. Like, he's his own person. So, it's why, like, it is really important to study artists for sure. It's just that, like, once you get to a certain point, you realize that, like, you have to discover yourself. Just because it's, like, it's just not possible to do what he does. Like, no matter, you could be even better than him technically, like, from a artistic standpoint, but if you're not him, then you're not gonna get, like, exactly what works for him, which is, like, it's disheartening at times, because, like, you're like, oh man, I really want to be that person, but at the same time, you'll find something that is really that will speak to you yourself, and eventually you'll be like, oh, I don't need to copy people anymore. It's like you have something that you like over everything else. Like, in a way, like, if you're like, you have to have an ego when it comes to your style as well, because like if you're going into a professional world, you have to, like, kind of be confident enough to say, what I'm doing is in demand, and I know for sure nobody else can do it. And if you now, I'm not saying you want to be a dick about it, but if you're looking to be professional, you have to have that attitude. You have to know that what you bring is different. Yeah, when Jun Lin is another guy that I've been looking at a lot. Again, like, I've tried to do studies, like, I never show it to people, but, like, it's one of those things where, like, no matter what, you're never going to really capture how he does it. And I'm sure, like, as you guys guys improve, you'll start to figure out a style, and then people will try to copy you, and then they find out they can't figure you out. And, like, I'm in the step as well. Like, I always say, like, don't try to copy me, because, like, there's no way, like, you're not gonna learn much if you try to copy everything I do, just because, like, I feel like I was in everybody else's position, like, years ago. It's one of those things where, like, you fall into the trap of trying to copy too much, like, and it never works out. Like, I've done it to, like, people like Ashley Wood, if you know about Metal Gear Solid, the art for Metal Gear and stuff. Like, I've tried to copy Ashley Wood for years, and I mean that. Like, a lot of my earlier work, you see, like, I literally would try to do 1-to-1s on what he did, but, like, ultimately, like, eventually, it's like, oh, I learned a lot from how he paints. Now it's time for me to take that knowledge and do it myself, because, like, otherwise I'm just going to be a shittier Ashley Wood, and it is never going to end well, like, if you do that professionally. I am making sure the hair looks right, and it doesn't, so I'm gonna bring it back a little bit more here. Bottom left might be too red. I need something on the top right here. There's something that I don't really like here. I'll have to think about it, but like this silhouette, this shape here is really bad. So I'll have to think about it. Maybe one day, yeah. Maybe I'll study some artists. The important part when you're studying artists is that you aren't really trying to get like a picture perfect image. You're trying to understand as you go along of copying them what they're thinking throughout the process. Like for me, like obviously, like I'm here to tell you exactly what I'm thinking throughout like what I'm doing here. So I'm already skipping a step for you guys, right? But if you're just looking at like an image, like the most important part, no matter which artist you're studying, is that you need to understand what they're thinking about, or at least get a hunch of it. Obviously, like people like William Bouguereau, which I've studied a lot, like William Bouguereau has been dead for like 100 years. So like we can't go back in time and ask him what the heck he was thinking when he was doing the work. But if you are copying his work, then perhaps you can have a hunch, you can have a prediction, like a hypothesis of what he was thinking about when he was doing his work. And like now of course you can never confirm it for dead artists, but it's a good learning lesson in what you might be able to do to put in your own work as well. So I kind of like the dark here. Like a lot of people, like I would say, like the reason why I said that is because even when I was starting out, like I would just copy, and I didn't learn anything from copying, right? I was just trying to make the prettiest picture to get marks for the teacher, but as I went along, I realized like there's no real point to impress the teacher, right? You're not looking to get marks, you're looking to learn. So like even if you have a really bad copy of like a William Bouguereau or Rembrandt or something, and like you get a really bad mark for it, it doesn't matter as long as during the process you learn something from copying his work. Then like that is the real lesson. And like don't copy for sake of copying. Like if you're gonna do the exercise, you have to be very deliberate. Just because I understand that like a lot of times people just copy and like it's like what the heck am I doing it for? And you don't really get much out of it. I still don't like this a little bit. Might incorporate some blues here. Change the contrast a little bit, darken. So again, one of those digital things here. Oh yeah, like it happens to me too. Like sometimes when I'm like if I'm going out into life draw, sometimes I just autopilot, right? That's considered copying. If you're just autopiloting, like just drawing the model in front of you, sometimes you just don't learn anything. You're just copying. You're not understanding. And like I fall into the trap right now. Like it's very easy if you turn off your brain sometimes. But like I urge people, like if you're gonna copy or you're gonna study certain artists, like you really, really, really want to go into a session, going to it like whether you're copying an artist or going life drawing, that you know in the back of your head what you're trying to achieve for that day. So like if you're going to let's say copy Kren's Kush art, right? Maybe this copy I am going to be really careful on the colors. I don't care if the figure doesn't look like what he does. I don't care if it looks like crap. you want to just come out of it like understanding that one thing, and like if you get that down, then you learn something, right? But a lot of people will go into copying and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to copy. I'm going to make the prettiest Kren's Kushart ripoff ever. And they make a really pretty picture, but then the moment they stop copying him, then it looks really bad. So like it means that you didn't really learn anything. It's just kind of like, oh well, I did a really nice copy that one time. Yeah, it's just my little rant, but it's... yeah, it's one of those traps that a lot of people fall into, and like, just trying to alleviate the problem here. It's weird my internet is not working on Discord and shit. I'm just making sure. I mean, the only thing that's working is Discord. I can't seem to go on certain websites and stuff, so it's probably a DNS problem. I'll have to fix it afterwards. I'm not liking the tangent here. Tangents are basically the one shape it's pointing directly at an edge of another. So I'm gonna shorten the hair a little bit, just so that it doesn't create that pointed edge right there. Very, very subtle things, but like it's one of those things that kind of accidentally happen. This is looking pretty good here. Maybe pump up the eyes a bit more. I'm still not liking this, but I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Do I need to spread the white hair here? One thing I have to consider when I'm doing a painting like this is just like, since her hair is so dominantly white, if I need to balance it by spreading the colors around, just because it's the same with painting Edelgard. If you saw my reference earlier on like this, you see that like I had to spread some of that white around just so that it's not isolated in one area. I really hate painting hands, but gotta do it. I'll probably have to hint a thumb on the far side, just so that it doesn't look like she's missing a thumb. The thing with hands is, especially with my style, a lot of times the hands aren't in the focal point, so like I try to keep it sketchy, but at the same time, if you make it too sketchy, then it doesn't read like a hand, and then people will just be like, "Ha, you don't know how to draw fucking hands, right?" But it's one of those things where like I have to balance between my style of drawing hands and just making it read like a hand, like so. One artist that I really like to take influence with is Ashley Wood. Ashley Wood has really good hands, and if you've ever seen his style is really sketchy as well. So like he has a really good way of handling how to paint hands, and I try my best to copy him in terms of how he handles them, but you know, he's much better than me, so something I'll have to keep learning as I do this sort of thing. He's like 46 or whatever, so like I have like 16 years to catch up. Yeah, like, leave it to me to paint a portrait with two hands showing, which is... Hands are some of the hardest parts I have to paint for the reasons I stated before. A lot of times I'll be working on the hands quite a bit, just because I need to balance between too rendered and too sketchy, and anatomically correct. So, it's one of those things. I am going to have to fix her sleeves. I'm not liking these sleeves. If she's raising her hand like this, that means it'll be something like that. And then something like this instead. Yeah. It needs to be more dynamic. That's not working. Like, this is too... So one thing to note is that because this is supposed to be a sleeve, it's supposed to be cloth, but this is looking like plastic. So... even though it's very sketchy and such, I have to really consider the structure of cloth and stuff. That looks a lot better. I just need a little bit of malleability in the cloth, just because it's supposed to be clothing. So, yeah, just tone it down a little bit here. As with everything, like, whether hands are expressive or not depends entirely on what the piece needs. And, like, again, like, sometimes too much expression is bad. Like, and like, yeah, it's one of those things where hands can be a problem because, like, sometimes you just have to subdue them. And hands can be really distracting as well because of how many, like, they have fingers, they have so many things going on. So again, it's one of those things where a lot of times there's two parts of the body that I would repaint quite a bit. Usually it's going to be the hands, usually it's going to be the faces. Like, those two parts are going to those parts I'm always going to ensure I get properly, or else the piece falls apart really quickly. I can emphasize the lips a bit more. I want to slam some colors in. I'm just testing something here. Do I need yellows? No, that's not working, no. You know, honestly, I was picturing this in my head. Like, I do like the greens. Like, it gives a lot of contrast to the red background, and, like, in the equivalent, the traditional equivalent, is just having a glaze of green just run all over her body here. And I'm liking it. I'm gonna keep it. Just because I feel like there has to be something that's differing as a whole to her body. I'll probably just give it a peach. I'll bring back some of the red with a peachy color here, very subtle peachy color. But yeah, I needed that. Yeah, that looks so much better. It might not be correct per se, but like design wise, like I needed that color in, and it really works. I'll probably have to shade out the far eye just because it makes more sense. How much I will have to test here. It needs to be redder. Something like that, maybe. That looks much, much better. Bring some of that red back into her nose here. The cheeks. Whoops. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Give me that lip shine. Probably gonna make the distinct the divide of the lips as well, from the upper lip to bottom lip as well. The other thing with anime styles, like, I have to be very careful how I do the nostrils, because, like, a lot of times, like, if you ever seen anime, of course, I'm sure everybody has, they will even, like, delete the nostrils. And, like, when it comes to my work, I don't really want to just delete the nostrils, but I need to make sure that they're not overemphasized in any way. Yeah, that looks very good. Yeah. That looks a lot better. Yeah, thank you very much. The highlights are more of an anime influence, so like again, like the way I like to think of my style is that I'm painting anime, but I'm also like making sure that it's not like, this is anime. You know, I'm not screaming everything is like is I'm bringing traits of anime without like being too far into that sort of thing. Just because, like, I'm not, like, for me, it's like, there's just so many people who are doing the traditional anime stuff that, like, I want to bring a little bit more to what I do, what I prefer. So, yeah, this is one of those things. I can accentuate the eyes a bit more. Make it red, just because I think her eyes are, like, purple in lore. Yeah, it's purple. But something like that would be really good here. This is where I'll start doing the details here. This is like an hour and a half in. So yeah, so like you can see, like, if like around this point is where I'm going to be saying, okay, is this worth rendering or not? Like, keep going. And in this case, I would say this is pretty successful for an hour and a half. So, this is definitely something I'll keep going with, and I'll probably post this tomorrow or something. Gotta make sure the hand is right here. And around this point as well is where I'm going to start doing this sort of thing, where I'm just leaking the paint down. In traditional paint, you don't really have to do this because it does it naturally. But for me, it's like, now that I have the established colors, I have the painting almost in completion phase. This is where I'm going to start adding the effects, just to give it a little bit of flair. One nice cheat I have with this style that I'm going for is that because I can have random colors breaking lines and stuff, I can, if there's a place where I need certain colors, I'll just leak them in. So like here, I'm feeling a bit of red. I think I definitely need a bit of red, so I will be sneaking some of that red in to really to bring that in. But like if you're going for a more like line art, very like decisive, very clean type of style, then you can't do something like this. Yeah, I lost the hint of the thumb there. But I need to make sure that doesn't overpower the hand motion either. Yeah, hands are interesting. Very, very interesting. Maybe darken the underside of that as well. Honestly, I'm pretty impressed how well this turned out. But I guess I'm too used to drawing, like painting like white-haired girls now, anime girls. So like, I guess this is not out of my territory. Yeah, there's something wrong with the hair here. I'm not feeling it. I think I know why. I need to have a little bit of like areas to distinguish where her bangs start here, their hair bangs. Yeah, something like that. Just hints of it. I don't need to. One thing is like when you're painting hair, you don't have to paint every strand. You just have to give a little bit of hint towards it. And in my case, I can get away with just doing that. I still don't like the shape of this hair. So one of the things as well is that if you're ever translating a character that's meant for 3D or a very specific type of anime style or something, then you might have problems translating it to your own style. So this is one of those cases where the aesthetics are not working here. Because the hair is meant to be done in a certain different style. So I might have to just like this doesn't look too bad. I'm fine with this. Like you'll often find a lot of times if you're painting a lot of anime characters that like there's just certain things that will not work at all when you're doing a painterly style. Like it's actually pretty funny when I try to paint the really painterly stuff. I mean the really anime characters. Like if you're familiar with Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, I've tried to do fan art of that before. But like I'll bring it up. Apparently my Google doesn't seem to work. But yeah, you can Google it. But like Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, the characters are super anime and cutesy. And when I tried to make fan art of that did not translate well at all. Like Fire Emblem is one of the better anime style media that I could reasonably translate to my own work, just because like they're more they incorporate a bit more realism to their designs, even though they're still quite anime. So just something to think about. I kind of like her face on the left side. That's another really cool cheat I can do. I can just flip-flop the entire canvas. This is almost completed, I would say. If I keep going, it's probably gonna just get over-rendered. So I'll spice up the reds a little bit more. Colors will get adjusted quite a bit. Just cause like if your eyes will get too used to certain things, and sometimes it's just better to just adjust it as you go along, as your eyes readjust. Maybe even pump up the entire piece. Yeah, something like this would be pretty good. Bring some of that pattern in. I'm not liking that in this corner there. Let me go on my phone to check the link here. I don't remember what it did, honestly. Yeah, that one, that particular style, that particular style was actually supposed to be a study of Kren's quick art, but I ended up just making it my own. Like the second one is fairly old. Yeah, that was back when I was like still trying to do the Metal Gear type of style. So like the colors are more reminiscent of the Metal Gear type of stuff. But for me, it's like I like it, but like at the same time, I don't want to dwell on that sort of thing, because ultimately, if I do that type of style again, I'm just gonna. It's just gonna be just ripping off like Ashley Wood and stuff. So like it's like I've since like and back then as well. Like one other thing is that I was just learning how to use colors. So it might be why that the armored girl picture was very dull, and the colors are very weak compared to what I use now. Because back then I literally did not know how to balance colors properly. So like that was like just one of those things. So yeah, while I appreciate that you liked some of my older works there, it's like I don't know if I want to go back to it. Maybe for certain subject matter, if I really have to like do something with that sort of subject matter, then maybe, but in terms of the dim sum one, that one was more of a study, and I honestly didn't like it because I liked how it turned out, but like one big part about being professional is that you have to think beyond the results. You have to think about the process, and I really didn't like how the process went for that one, even though it turned out well. Like in a lot of cases, like the ends doesn't really justify the means when it comes to art, because if I have to do that type of style again, then I'm going to not like it because of how the process went. So it sounds weird just because like, yeah, like I liked the way the picture went, but like if I can't translate that, if the actual doing of that style was not feeling right, And yeah, it's one of those. It's always going to be in consideration. The process matters a lot when it comes to art. Could I bring some of my blues in? I kind of like having a bit of blues. Let me see. Yeah, it does look pretty cool. No pun intended. I'll probably have to fix up her eyes a little bit. Yeah, that piece I really like as well, but my major problem with that trumpet piece is I didn't like the way I did the colors. It was a little bit too muddy. That's one of those pieces where I went too safe, and it's something I talked about earlier in this stream, where sometimes you just play the colors a little bit too safe, and then you, by the time you finish it, you're like, oh crap, it looks very dull, and that wasn't really my intention. Yeah, if I were to do the trumpet one again, I would most likely change a lot of things with the colors. But the storytelling and stuff I really liked. Like that was one thing I enjoyed. But it goes to show there's a lot of there's always going to be improvements on what you do in art. Like I'm not beyond improvements. Like there's just there's always going to be something. Like I screw up. And the more chances you take, the more you're gonna screw up, and that's a good thing. Like it's always like when I'm doing portraits like these are considered super safe artwork. Like I'm not like if I'm going to do like something for a stream, it's not going to be something that is like some super elaborate like fight scene with a ton of people going around and stuff. So because the chances of screwing that up is very high. Whereas like one portrait here, while I do have a chance of screwing it up, it's less likely because there's less elements to worry about. The trumpet one was much more elaborate than people really people really think. There's a lot of things going on that made it difficult, I would say. Need a bit of interesting effects at the bottom here. This is where I'll start zooming out and really kind of get a glimpse of what I need. I just like the green. This is... I like this too. So around this point is like I would say it's called the glazing phase, where you're adjusting colors. In traditional media, you would be using thin layers of paint in order to adjust the temperature of a lot of these colors, and I'm liking this better, but maybe toned down a little bit. Yeah, I'll readjust this just to see. Whoops! Whoa, that's going crazy. No, I screwed it up. I could do this and just tone it down a little bit here. Yeah. So, like, that sort of thing is what I would do is, so if I'm picturing the image to, like, I need like, a hint of blue mixed into the hair, for instance, then I would most likely use adjustment layers and such just to incorporate that in. In traditional media, you would use a very thin layer of paint and just, like, brush over a dried up canvas so that you don't really mix it with the other paint. And then once you do that, then the thin blue layer will actually create like a really nice tint on top of your painting. So I would most likely say this is complete, maybe even like enlarge her a little bit like this. Just because the shape of the hair at the top is a little bit disorienting. I don't really think it's necessary to look at it. This kind of looks like a Helltaker character, no lie, but maybe just the way I did it. This is losing articulation. I'm gonna make sure. Just making sure the arms are properly attached there. Bring some of that red into my... something like that. I think this should be okay. Any changes now would most likely be after I reset my eyes and really look at this again. But for now, I think this could be the end of the stream here, just because I think I need to really get a second opinion after I come back, like take a break and come back. But this does look pretty good, I think. So hopefully you enjoyed this stream. Actually, glad you guys and gals were able to partake in the first Patreon stream, and we'll do this more often in the future. But there will be a VOD. If you didn't read the message, there will be a video on demand for anybody who is in the $4 or higher tier. Everyone else, you caught this live, so that's fine. So anyways, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.